People who never spoke much before began glancing your way, some with knowing smiles, others with curiosity that burned like questions on their lips. And you knew then, it wasn't just a rumor. Your heartbeat quickened at odd hours. Your thoughts tangled between hope and doubt. You caught yourself staring at the empty chair by the window, wondering if soon it would no longer be empty. That chair, once so ordinary, had suddenly become a symbol, a place waiting to be filled again. Then came the sign. No one could ignore, a message left quietly at your door, not written in long sentences. Just a single line etched in hurried strokes. Sweetheart, I'm closer than you think. The ink looked fresh, the paper smelled of dust and travel, and your hands shook as you held it, because this was no echo of the past. This was now. Every sound outside became suspicious. After that, the rumble of a car, the quick steps of someone passing, even the knock of delivery at the wrong door, everything pulled your heart toward the thought, is it him? Is this the moment? The waiting became heavier, yet more alive than silence had ever been. When you started preparing, without realizing it, you found yourself cleaning spaces that had long been ignored, as though the air needed to be fresh. When he walked in, clothes folded, curtains adjusted, dishes polished, not because you were told to, but because hope is louder than any order. And as your hands moved, your heart whispered, be ready, be ready. Strangers seemed to know something too. A shopkeeper smiled a little wider when you walked by. A child on the street waved at you with no reason. Even the weather felt different. The wind softer, the sky more awake. It was as if the whole world leaned closer, whispering, he's near, one after another, each stronger than the last. A suitcase left at the edge of the street that looked just like the one he once carried. A song playing on the radio that mirrored the very words he used to whom. Even the night sky shifted, the stars arranging themselves as though forming a path. And then the most undeniable sign arrived. A sound at the gate, firm but not hurried. 3 knocks, steady, deliberate, carrying the rhythm of someone who knows they belong here. You froze, the air tight in your chest, because every part of you knew. This was not chance, this was not a neighbor, this was not a dream. This was him. Your steps toward the door felt heavier than stone, yet lighter than air. Each second stretched long enough to feel like hours. You reached for the handle, fingers trembling not from fear but from the sheer weight of a moment you thought might never come. And just as your hand touched the door, a voice outside, low, calm, filled with a certainty you remembered too well. Sweetheart, your man is here. Sweetheart, the moment your fingers brushed the handle, the world outside and the world inside stopped breathing. Everything stood still except your heartbeat. You could feel the weight of every second you had waited pressing down on your shoulders, yet lifting you at the same time. Your breath came out slow, shaky, but your grip on the handle grew firmer. Behind that thin barrier of wood and air stood the man who had been gone so long that even your dreams had started to forget his shape. The voice outside spoke again, low, steady, but carrying an edge of hunger that only distance can carve into a person. Sweetheart, open the door. Just 4 words. But they broke through the walls of time. Your knees weakened, but you pulled yourself upright, because this was not a moment to collapse. It was a moment to rise. You turned the handle slowly. The click of the lock was louder than thunder. The door creaked open inch by inch, letting in a slice of light that stretched across the floor, like a path leading straight to your heart. And there he was. At first you only saw a silhouette. Tall, still, framed by the fading glow of the outside sky. His shoulders looked broader, his stance heavier, a man shaped by journeys unknown. You noticed the way his hands hung at his sides, not clenched, but ready, as if every nerve in him was reaching for you but holding back. The air between you two vibrated with memory and anticipation. You had imagined this so many times, but imagination had never captured the real depth. The lines around his eyes, carved by longing, the softness hidden beneath the weight of time. The tiny tremor of his lower lip as he tried to speak. He didn't rush forward, didn't flood you with words. He simply looked at you like he was seeing his world for the first time again. You stepped back slightly, not from fear, but to steady yourself. Your hand touched the frame of the door, grounding you. He took 1 step forward, slow, deliberate, leaving just enough space between you to make every movement feel like a choice. Sweetheart, he whispered, voice breaking like a wave. I told you I'd come back. The sound of his voice wrapped around you like a coat you had missed in winter. Warm, heavy, familiar, but new at the same time. You wanted to run to him, yet your body stayed still, suspended in that strange space where hope meets reality. The room seemed to shrink, the air thicker with every breath. Behind him, a car door closed. A faint sound of someone walking away. Maybe the driver, maybe a stranger. But it reminded you this wasn't a dream. He had truly arrived, and still he waited, his eyes searching yours, his chest rising and falling with the slow rhythm of someone trying to hold back an ocean. Your gaze drifted to his hands. He was carrying nothing, no suitcase, no bag, just himself. But you noticed the dust on his shoes, the faint scent of rain clinging to his clothes, the tiny scratch across his knuckle that made you wonder what roads he had walked to get here. Every detail whispered a story untold. He stepped closer, crossing the invisible line. At the threshold, the space between you shrank until you could feel his warmth mixing with yours. His hand lifted slowly, stopping halfway, as if asking for permission without words. You didn't speak. You didn't have to. A sound from inside the house startled you both. The clock striking once, echoing through the walls, like a soft reminder of time passing. Neither of you moved for a heartbeat, listening to it fade. Then he lowered his voice even more. Just for you, I don't want to waste another second. You felt your breath hitch as the meaning of those words sank in. The years apart, the nights wandering, the questions with no answers. All of it pressed against the present moment, demanding to be released. You took a step forward, closing the last bit of space, your eyes never leaving his. The smell of him, travel, dust, and something unmistakably him, filled your senses, making your heart race faster. The wind from the open door carried the faint sound of music from somewhere down the street. The same melody he once hummed absent-mindedly when you walked together. It felt like the world itself was conspiring to remind you of who he was, of who you were when you were together. He noticed it too. A flicker of a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, small but real. He whispered again, voice rough but steady, I'm here now. No more waiting. You didn't answer yet, your throat tightened with so many words fighting to come out. Instead, you reached up, your fingertips brushing the air just an inch from his face, afraid to touch, afraid to break the fragile magic of the moment. And still he stood there, not rushing, not pushing, just being the man who had left, the man who had promised, the man who had finally returned. The space between his heartbeat and yours grew smaller with every breath, the door still half open, the room holding its breath as if it knew the story wasn't over yet. Sweetheart, the space between you and him felt like a fragile thread. One step, one breath, one touch could either break it or pull it tight, forever. The open door behind him let in the cool night air, but the warmth between your bodies was stronger. Almost like the house itself knew it was welcoming him back. Neither of you spoke at first, because words would never catch up to what the heart had carried for so long. He lifted his hand slowly, stopping just short of your cheek. You could see the hesitation, the quiet question in his eyes. Do I still have the right? Your silence answered for you. You leaned into the space between his palm and your skin, closing the distance yourself. His touch landed soft, careful, trembling, just enough to remind you he was human. The moment his skin touched yours, every memory rushed back at once. The nights you cried, the letters that never came, the way you stared at the stars, asking if he could see the same sky. All of it collided with the present moment, turning every second into a storm of feeling. You searched his face for guilt, for excuses, for shadows of regret, but all you found was relief. Sweetheart, he whispered, his voice breaking mid-word, I thought I'd lost you. His eyes glistened under the dim light, and for the first time you saw the cracks in his strength. This wasn't the same man who had left. This was someone who had been shaped by absence, by distance, by the ache of missing you. Your lips parted, but no words came. Instead, you let the silence answer. Silence heavy with everything you had ever wanted to scream, and everything you had ever kept buried. He stepped fully inside then, leaving the door wide open behind him. The sound of it creaking back against the wall echoed like a declaration. The waiting was over. The witness of the house itself seemed alive now. The clock ticked louder, The wind rustled through the curtains. Even the floorboards groaned as if adjusting to the return of a weight they remembered. You both stood in that familiar room, yet it felt like entering it for the first time again. He let his hand fall from your cheek, but only to take your hand in his. His grip was firm, desperate, as though he feared that letting go even for a second would send him drifting away again. He pulled your hand up to his chest, pressing it against the steady beat of his heart. "Feel this," he said softly. It never stopped calling your name. Your knees almost gave way at those words. That rhythm beneath your palm wasn't just a heartbeat. It was proof that distance couldn't silence him, that time couldn't erase you, that promises made in the quiet still meant something. Tears pressed against your eyes, but you blinked them back because you wanted to see him clearly, without blur, without haze. He reached into his pocket slowly, as though pulling out something fragile. You expected a letter, maybe a picture, but instead he revealed a small folded scrap of fabric. He held it out to you, eyes soft, almost shy. "I carried this everywhere," he whispered. The fabric was worn, edges frayed, but you recognized it instantly. It was a piece from the scarf you once gave him years ago. The sight of it cracked you open in ways words never could. This wasn't just a man returning. This was proof he had never truly left, even in distance, even in silence. He had kept you close. Your fingers brushed the fabric, and in that touch you felt both the weight of the past and the promise of the future. He leaned closer now, his voice so low you almost didn't hear it. "Sweetheart, if you let me, I don't ever want to leave again." The pause after his words stretched like eternity, the world holding still for your answer. The sound of footsteps outside the open door suddenly echoed in, snapping you both back. A shadow passed by the doorway, slow and lingering, as if someone was listening. You both froze, hearts pounding for reasons beyond reunion.